In this session, we're going to cover Centurion Technologies Smart Control. Specifically, we're going to cover a few different functions today. We're going to cover our Connect to Client, which is a simple remote desktop connection. We're going to cover our column filtering, changing the Windows Update setting remotely, messaging, and blocking the keyboard and mouse. So, let's get started. To initiate a remote desktop session, I could highlight a computer, any computer in my Smart Control. So we'll just go ahead and highlight this Windows 7 virtual machine, and I could come up to Client Control, and I could connect to the client from here, or I could simply right click and connect to the client from here. And what it's going to do is it's going to initiate a remote desktop session with that client. Now I've taken over the client, and I can do whatever I need to do. I can open up Internet Explorer, I could do a variety of things. So we'll go ahead, we're going to close that out. It's going to say this disconnection has occurred. And now if I go back to my virtual machine, you're going to see that it was logged off, just like any Windows remote desktop session. So I have to go ahead and enter in my password to get back into my session as the user, and which I've done. So again, I can highlight any client, right click, and simply connect to the client and initiate a remote desktop session. One thing that our customers tend to use a lot is on the All Machines section, we have the column of information, multiple columns of information. So we have the name of the computer, the IP address, and let's say I want to take my MAC address and move it over by my IP address to keep that all together. I can certainly do that. I could filter by hitting the top column title bar, and that could filter according to the IP address range. I can filter numerically, or in this case alphabetically if I hit the computer name, the column name, and so on. If I want to narrow my filter, I could say if I want to look at all my unconnected clients, I could choose that. So now I'm just viewing all my unconnected clients. If I go back to all, again, I'm displaying all my clients. So let's go ahead and view all my currently unprotected clients. And let's go ahead and narrow that one more time. Let's say I want to view all my currently unprotected clients that are going to remain unprotected after the next reboot. And here they are. So again, I have the ability to filter from the title columns and narrow my results here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to select a change for our Windows Update settings to occur. Now, in another session, in our Smart Shield session, we went over how to set our Windows updates on the local client. That setting can also be adjusted remotely. So in this case, I have Building A, and I'm going to go ahead and select all my clients. I'm going to come up to Client Control, come to Miscellaneous Configuration, and browse down to Client Windows Update. I'll click on that, and it brings up this Windows Update Settings field. And as soon as I click on this box, we will then again, just like the local client, take over your Windows Update management. And I could choose whatever day of the week. In this case, I want to change all these clients to Sunday at 2 a.m. And my maximum minutes allowed, I might change that to 60. And if I submit this, enter in my password, hit OK, and then as you can see, it's changed the update setting for my client, and it's successful. The other clients here, the computers, the named computers, are just demonstration or illusionary clients, so they do not post the last result. And that's how you would change your Windows Update setting remotely instead of locally. So again, this is a way that's going to help expedite your management process. Instead of going to each machine and selecting the machine and changing that machine locally, I can select the whole group of clients and simply change that Windows Update setting remotely. Now, let's do something a little different. Let's go ahead and let's send a message to my virtual machine. So if I highlight my virtual machine and I right click, once again I'm going to go to Miscellaneous Configuration and I'm going to select Client Message. I can enter in a title for my message. Possibly it is test this Friday if I work for a school. And then my message will be study hard. And I can even put a URL here if I wish that maybe includes subject matter that this test covers. If I hit OK, and I go back to my virtual machine, you can now see that this message window has been displayed on the virtual machine or any of the machines that I've selected through my smart control. In this case, I could send this message to all my machines instead of just this virtual machine. Now, the last thing that I'm going to cover during this session is our keyboard and mouse blocking. The keyboard and mouse blocking is primarily used to prevent anyone from interfacing with an unprotected machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send a command to my Windows virtual machine, and I'll go through the protection mode to do this, and I'm going to block the keyboard and mouse. The reason maybe I do this is because let's say that I have a situation where I'm working with a colleague and I am at the smart control, and my colleague is going to walk down to a section of computers and they need to make a permanent configuration change to those computers. So I go ahead, I disable the protection on those computers. I then block the keyboard and mouse because I do not want anyone interfacing with those computers in an unprotected mode. And my colleague is in transit walking down to that section, so when he or she gets there, we want all those computers to be blocked. So again, what it will look like when my colleague gets to that section is all the computers will have this message displayed, and all the computers will be in red, and it's going to have this message here, but you can change this message up if you need to. And the reason again why we do this is to prevent anyone from sitting down at this unprotected machine. Now my colleague sits down at this unprotected machine and types in their password to unlock the machine. And now they've just locally disabled that keyboard and mouse blocking. And now they can go ahead and interface with this machine and make whatever permanent configuration changes they need to make. And then come back here, re-protect the machine through the local interface, reboot it, and then move on to the next machine. Now, let's take it a little bit further. I've just showed you a keyboard and mouse, our standard keyboard and mouse blocking. Now let's do a block keyboard and mouse custom. And again, I'm using the icon here this time to show you a little variety in how you can send commands. So I blocked the keyboard and mouse custom, and I'm going to change the background to green. And my message is going to be out of order. I'll hit OK. Enter in my password. And go back to my virtual machine. And now you can see that this machine has now been changed and it's been customized as far as the message goes and the background color. So if you have a specific need or a specific message that you need to send during the keyboard and mouse blocking, you certainly have the ability to do that. And this concludes our smart control session covering keyboard and mouse blockaging, messaging, remotely changing the Windows Update setting, the column filtering, and connecting to a client to initiate a remote desktop.